Imagine it's 1885. You are walking alone down a pitch-black cobblestone alleyway in Apolda, Germany.
Which is not exactly a comforting place to be.
No, definitely not. There is no reliable street lighting at all. You're carrying a heavy leather bag stuffed with cash collected taxes. Actually, and pretty much everyone in this town absolutely hates you.
Right, because you're the tax collector.
Exactly. People are desperate, the shadows are really deep, and you know for a fact that you are a walking target. In that situation, you aren't looking for like a cuddly pet to warm your feet by the fire.
No, you're looking for a weapon.
You're looking for a weapon. And that terrifying nightly commute is exactly how the modern Doberman was born. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at an incredible stack of source notes from the Doberman Health Academy.
And you know, that dark alleyway really is the Rosetta Stone for understanding this entire breed.
Yeah, totally.
Because if you look at a Doberman through the lens of a modern suburban living room, their behaviors can seem incredibly eccentric, sometimes even frustrating.
Oh, for sure. Like, why are they following me everywhere?
Exactly. But if you view them through the eyes of that 19th century tax collector, well, suddenly every single physical and psychological trait makes perfect logical sense.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's fascinating how this one guy's highly specific, highly dangerous job essentially became the blueprint for an animal that lives in our homes today.
It really is wild when you think about it.
Most dog breeds we talk about were shaped incredibly slowly over centuries. You know, a slight mutation here, a gradual adaptation to a cold climate there.
Right, natural selection mostly.
Yeah. But this origin story,
Yeah.
it feels less like natural evolution and more like a mechanical engineer deciding to build a custom, high-performance sports car to execute one highly specific mission.
Because it was entirely purpose-driven. The man walking those dark streets was Karl Friedrich Louis Dobermann.
A tax collector.
Right, the tax collector, which was obviously a high-risk profession.
Yeah.
But crucially for our story, he also ran the local dog pound.
Oh, that's convenient. Very. That position gave him access to a massive variety of dogs passing through the town. He wasn't trying to create a beautiful show dog.
He just wanted to survive his walk home.
Exactly. He was looking at his own nightly commute and realizing he needed a very specific set of tools built into one single body. He needed a bodyguard that could neutralize a threat before he even knew it was there.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me he just walked into the dog pound he ran and started mashing breeds together?
Pretty much, yeah.
That sounds incredibly reckless. I mean, how did he not just end up with an unpredictable, dangerous mess?
Well, it was an incredibly high-stakes experiment, and this is where the history gets a little murky.
Yeah.
There are no definitive stud books from that exact era documenting every single crossbreed he made.
So we don't have, like, the exact recipe.
No. He didn't have a modern genetics lab. It was a lot of trial, error, and frankly, sheer luck that his combinations didn't result in an absolute disaster.
I bet.
But breed historians have a very confident picture of the functional ingredients he eventually landed on.
So what does this all mean for the dog's actual DNA? Because when I read through these historical contributors in the notes, it genuinely reads like a genetic heist movie.
A heist movie, I like that.
You know the trope. You are putting together a crew for the ultimate job, and every single member brings one highly specific, indispensable skill to the table.
I like the heist analogy, though we should remember it was much less organized than a movie. But looking back at the genetic blueprint, you can absolutely see the specific roles being filled.
Right.
So who is in your heist crew?
Okay, first, you need the muscle. The heavy hitter who doesn't panic when things get physical. So historians point to the Rottweiler.
Which makes perfect sense.
Right. That gives the new breed its dense physical strength and this calm, incredibly grounded presence.
Exactly. The Rottweiler provides the anchor. If someone grabs you in an alley, you need a dog with the sheer physical mass and bite force to stop an adult human in their tracks.
Yeah, you need stopping power.
But a Rottweiler alone has a problem.
Right, they aren't exactly known for lightning-fast reflexes. If there's a sudden ambush, you need quick twitch reactions.
They can be a bit slow off the mark.
Yeah, so for reflexes, Doberman brings in the German Pinscher. That injects the sharpness, the high energy, and the instant explosive reactivity.
Which is a crucial addition. But now you have a strong reactive dog that might still get outrun by a fleeing thief.
Oh, true.
Or it might not be able to cover the length of a long alleyway fast enough to intercept a threat.
Enter the getaway driver. You need pure, unadulterated speed. So he mixes in early Greyhound or Weimaraner blood.
Which completely changes the body shape.
Yeah, that gives the dog that sleek, aerodynamic build. It completely changes the chassis of the dog, giving them the ability to sprint over distances.
And finally, you need the brains of the operation. A dog this powerful, this fast, and this reactive is a huge liability if it can't take direction or anticipate a situation.
The mastermind. Historians point to the Beauceron, which is a French herding and guarding breed.
Which is brilliant when you think about it.
It makes total sense. Herding dogs have to anticipate movements, not just react to them. That's where the high intelligence and trainability come from. Every single breed brought a specific tool.
Even the physical traits we associate with Dobermans today, they weren't about aesthetics.
No, it was all functional. The notes explain that the massive, deep chest was engineered for maximum lung capacity for sustained work.
The long legs were for explosive speed.
And even that classic upright, proud posture, that's just a structural adaptation for a dog genetically programmed to act as a periscope, constantly scanning its environment over obstacles.
What's fascinating here is how all those physical tools, the lung capacity, the speed, the bite force, had to be governed by one supreme psychological trait.
Right.
Louis Doberman needed one specific mental characteristic above all else, which was independent thinking.
Why independent? I mean, wouldn't you want a bodyguard to wait for your command? I'd want a dog that doesn't make a move until I say go.
Not in an alleyway in the pitch dark. Think about the mechanics of an ambush.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If someone jumps out from behind a wagon with a knife, and your dog waits for you to visually assess the situation, formulate a plan, and give a verbal command, well, by the time the dog acts, you're already dead.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
The dog had to be capable of assessing a threat instantly and responding without hesitation or permission. That instinct for independent judgment wasn't a flaw. It was a survival mechanism for the creator.
And it is still deeply hardwired into the breed today.
Absolutely.
But wait, if this dog was genetically wired to make split-second aggressive decisions in an 1880s alley, how on earth does that work in a modern living room?
It can be tricky.
Because when I read about Dobermans today, people always talk about how incredibly clingy they are with their owners. Those seem like opposite traits. An independent fighter who also won't let you go to the kitchen alone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes perfect sense. The frustrated modern owner who can't get 5 minutes of privacy is actually witnessing the 1880s blueprint working flawlessly.
Wait, really? The clinging is part of the blueprint.
Think about the tax collector. He couldn't have a protection dog that wandered off to sniff a bush or chase a rabbit.
Oh, right. They had to stay close.
The dog had to be permanently tethered to his side, constantly monitoring his immediate radius. This is what the notes refer to as the Velcro dog phenomena.
Oh, wow. So if you've ever owned one, you know you haven't gone to the bathroom alone in years. And it turns out there's an actual genetic reason why your dog is staring at you in the shower.
Yeah, they are literally on duty.
That is hilarious and slightly intense.
Precisely. They don't just clock out of that job because they live in a safe suburb now. But this presents a huge challenge for modern owners.
Because of separation anxiety, right?
Yes, because if a puppy is never taught how to self-soothe without being in physical contact with their human, that deep-seated loyalty turns into severe separation anxiety.
Leaving for work becomes a traumatic event for the dog.
Building boundaries early on,
Nah.
enforcing calm, independent time isn't about withholding love. It is a strict requirement for protecting their long-term emotional well-being.
And speaking of their emotional well-being, we have to talk about how you actually train a dog that was built to think for itself. The source material is really clear that expecting blind, literal obedience from a Doberman is a recipe for disaster.
A lot of working breeds, like retrievers, for example, were designed to be incredibly literal.
You say sit, they sit.
Exactly. No questions asked. They live to please. The Doberman, though, was bred to assess.
Right.
If you rely purely on mindless repetition and harsh corrections, an independently thinking dog will simply tune you out. They will look at you, decide your command doesn't make sense in the current context, and ignore you.
Or worse, they will push back.
Exactly.
The notes call it a partnership style of training. It requires clear structure combined with positive reinforcement. You aren't dominating the dog. You are negotiating with a very intelligent, highly capable colleague.
It's a two-way conversation. You have to convince the mastermind of your heist crew that your plan is actually a good idea.
But if they're constantly assessing situations for themselves, Aren't they just inherently dangerous to have around neighbors or the mail carrier? I mean, people see that intense stare and immediately assume the dog is aggressive.
That is the single biggest misconception about protection breeds. People conflate alertness with aggression.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Genuine aggression, meaning unpredictable, indiscriminate hostility, would have been disastrous for a tax collector.
Oh, right, because he was dealing with the public.
If his dog was just wildly aggressive, it would have bitten the very citizens trying to hand over their tax money. You can't collect taxes if your dog is attacking everyone who reaches into their pocket.
That makes total sense. It makes me think of like having a hyper-advanced, incredibly expensive home security system.
Okay, I like where this is going.
If you just install the cameras and motion sensors, but you don't calibrate the software, the system's going to sound a massive alarm every time a passing squirrel runs across your lawn.
And that drives you crazy.
Exactly. The neighbors hate you, and it's practically useless as security. But if you take the time to calibrate the system, it learns to ignore the squirrel. And it only triggers the alarm when a real burglar tries to pry open the back window.
That is a brilliant way to understand it. In the dog's world, that calibration is early socialization. Louis Doberman wasn't selecting for aggression, he was selecting for discernment.
Discernment. That's the key word.
The dog had to possess the calm judgment to distinguish between a regular citizen and a genuine threat. But a modern puppy doesn't inherently know what a normal human looks like.
Right. Everything is new to them.
So if you want a good Doberman temperament, which is calm, calculated judgment, you have to expose that puppy to a massive variety of people, sounds, environments, umbrellas, bicycles, and delivery trucks during their early development.
Because if they don't know what normal looks like, everything looks like a threat. The system hasn't been calibrated.
Exactly. They have to build a mental database of normal human behavior so they have a baseline to compare against. Skipping socialization doesn't magically make the dog more protective.
It usually just creates a deeply anxious, highly reactive dog that is stressed out by its own shadow.
Precisely.
And we can't talk about their mental state without talking about just how smart they are. The sources give some amazing examples of their problem-solving skills. Because if you don't give this incredibly active brain a job, well, it will invent one.
And intelligence without a constructive outlet is almost always a recipe for destruction.
Oh yeah, the examples in the notes are wild. Like a Doberman nudging open a door because they observed the specific mechanics of the handle and figured out the latch wasn't fully engaged.
They're very observant.
Or, and this one blew my mind, learning to recognize the specific acoustic frequency of their owner's car engine pulling into the driveway long before anyone else in the house hears a thing. They aren't just hearing a car, they are categorizing the data and predicting an outcome.
It is an intelligent mind relentlessly looking for data to process, which means a long run might tire out their physical muscles, but if you don't engage their brain with training, puzzles, or tasks, you will never have a truly settled dog.
It's wild how much computing power is packed into that athletic frame.
Yeah.
But, you can't engineer a physical extreme like that massive chest and those long legs without some structural compromises.
No, biology doesn't really work like that.
And this brings us to the heavier part of our deep dive. The physical design of the Doberman necessitates a very specific, high-performance health maintenance protocol.
Yes. When you push biology to those kinds of extremes for speed and power, vulnerabilities emerge. And the primary condition that veterinary cardiologists emphasize with Dobermans is dilated cardiomyopathy, commonly known as DCM.
Right. The notes say they have a meaningfully elevated predisposition to this compared to other dogs, but what is actually happening in the heart?
In DCM, the heart muscle essentially becomes thin and floppy. It stretches out and becomes enlarged.
That sounds awful.
It is. Because the walls of the heart are weakened, it can no longer pump blood effectively. It also disrupts the electrical signals that govern the heartbeat, leading to dangerous arrhythmias.
And the really scary part, according to the sources, is that by the time a dog with DCM shows outward physical symptoms like coughing, lethargy, or collapsing the disease is usually incredibly advanced. The heart has already been failing for a long time.
Which is exactly why the management for this condition is entirely about proactive screening. The sources mention echocardiography, which is an ultrasound to visually inspect how the heart muscle is contracting. But even more crucially, they utilize Holter monitoring.
Right, the Holter monitor, that's a vest the dog wears that tracks the heart's electrical rhythm over a full 24-hour period while they just go about their normal day.
Exactly.
It catches those tiny electrical misfires long before the muscle physically gives out. And the Academy recommends starting this screening in early adulthood.
because early detection is everything. But the heart isn't the only structural vulnerability. We also need to talk about gastric dilation volvulus, commonly known as bloat.
This one sounds terrifying. It's an absolute stomach emergency.
Right.
But how does a dog bred for lung capacity end up with a life-threatening stomach issue? What is the actual mechanism there?
It all comes down to anatomy. Because the Doberman was bred to have this massive, cavernous chest to house giant lungs for running and fighting, there is a lot of excess empty space in their abdominal cavity.
Okay, I'm picturing that.
Their stomach is essentially suspended in this large void. If the dog eats a large meal quickly or drinks a ton of water and then immediately runs or plays hard, that heavy stomach can literally swing like a pendulum in that empty space.
Oh, wow.
It can flip over on itself, twisting the entrance and exit shut and trapping the gases inside as the food ferments.
Wow. So the very physical trait that made them an elite athlete, that huge chest, creates the exact environment for the stomach to twist.
Exactly. It requires immediate emergency surgery. It's a direct consequence of their anatomical blueprint.
And the list in the notes goes on. You have wobbler syndrome, which affects the neck.
Right, the cervical spine.
Because they have that proud, upright posture, holding a heavy head, it leverages pressure on the cervical vertebrae over time. Those can slip and compress the spinal cord, causing them to literally wobble when they walk.
It's very sad to see.
Then there's von Willebrand disease, which is a genetic lack of a specific clotting protein in the blood, meaning a simple routine surgery could become life-threatening if the vet doesn't screen for it first. Add in hip dysplasia and hypothyroidism, and honestly, this sounds overwhelming. Why would a normal family sign up for this? It sounds like you're just waiting for the dog to fall apart.
This raises an important question. How do we process medical information without just living in constant paralyzing fear?
Exactly.
And the key is understanding the critical difference between an elevated predisposition and a guaranteed outcome.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because if we move away from the car analogies, owning a Doberman is a lot more like operating a high-end, highly complex server room.
A server room.
Yeah. If you just lock the door to a server room and ignore it, eventually it's going to overheat, the systems will fail, and you'll have a catastrophic crash.
For sure.
But you don't do that. You install thermal sensors. You constantly monitor the temperature and the data loads. If a sensor spikes, you catch the problem early and adjust the cooling before anything actually breaks.
That is the exact mindset shift required for this breed. Awareness of these conditions shouldn't terrify you. It should empower you to build incredibly consistent monitoring habits.
Like checking the sensors.
Yes. If you catch subtle changes in a Holter monitor early, your vet has an arsenal of medications to support the heart and manage the condition for years. It turns a terrifying, out-of-the-blue surprise into a managed, prolonged reality.
And the sources even highlight practical tools for managing this kind of high-maintenance lifestyle. They mention platforms like VitalPet, which can help owners digitally track vaccines, weight trends, and all these highly specialized screening appointments in one place so nothing falls through the cracks.
It's about being as organized and intentional as the dog's original design.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Though we should explicitly note here, as our sources from the Doberman Health Academy do, that our deep dive today is for educational purposes only. We're discussing the mechanics of these conditions, but if you are ever concerned about your own dog's health, your very first step must always be to consult your actual veterinarian.
Always. Your vet is your best resource.
So, synthesizing everything we've pulled from the notes today. When you decide to bring a Doberman into your home, you aren't just picking out a striking, elegant pet from a catalog.
No, you are adopting a living, breathing artifact shaped by a very specific, very dangerous historical purpose.
That 1880s blueprint dictates literally everything about your life together. It dictates why you can't force them into blind obedience and must negotiate with them as a partner.
Right.
It dictates why they will follow you into the bathroom and require enforced independence so they don't panic when you leave. It dictates why they need complex mental puzzles to avoid dismantling your house.
And it absolutely dictates their long-term, proactive healthcare schedule, monitoring the very physical extremes that make them so beautiful.
You are inviting a highly specialized, historically engineered bodyguard into your life.
Yeah.
And if you respect that original design, if you put in the work to calibrate their systems, you get an unparalleled companion.
You really do.
Which leaves us with one final thought for you to mull over as we wrap up today's deep dive. We spent this entire time talking about how the dog was engineered. But look at the other side of the
The
equation.
human side.
Yeah. If the Doberman was perfectly genetically engineered to alleviate the specific raw anxieties of an 1880s tax collector walking through a dark, dangerous town, well, what does it say about us that this hyper-vigilant bodyguard has become one of our most beloved, sought-after, modern family companions?
That is a deep thought.
In our seemingly safe, well-lit, hyper-connected digital world, are we secretly just craving a primal feeling of safety? Or do we simply long for a partner who's genetically hardwired to never, ever stop watching our back?
That is a fascinating question to leave on.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.